Last week, we established something important. Grace was already there before you were looking for it, before the womb, before the world. The Father watching the horizon, the love poured out while we were still sinners. But already there isn't the whole story. At some point, the Father stops watching and runs. At some point, the grace that has become background becomes encounter. The presence that was always there becomes a meeting that you cannot mistake. That's what we're sitting with this week. Justifying grace, not the grace that precedes us, the grace that meets us. In Wesleyan theology, justifying grace is the moment of encounter, the but God that turns your sentence around. The grace that doesn't just know about you from a distance, the grace that looks at you. Wesley connected this closely to what he called the new birth, the moment when the prevenient grace that had been working quietly breaks into something unmistakable, a turning, a recognition, something genuinely new. It's not about a specific emotional experience or a particular kind of moment. It can look like a lot of different things, but the claim is that the encounter actually does something. It changes the person it meets. And this week, we're going to look at how. Jesus is at dinner with a Pharisee when a woman nobody was expecting walks in. She doesn't say a word. She's weeping. She washes his feet with her tears and dries them with her hair. And Simon the Pharisee, watching this, makes a quiet judgment about both of them. Jesus turns to Simon and asks one question. Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has bathed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which were many, have been forgiven. Hence she has shown great love." Simon sees a category. Jesus sees a person. That is the first thing justifying grace does. It sees you. Not your history, not the version of you that has been decided in advance by everyone else in the room. Not your category or your reputation. You, the actual person, doing the thing nobody else is doing for reasons that turn out to be love. I have to sit with the Simon side of this as much as I sit with hers, because I have categories too. I see people through grids I've already built, and Jesus is asking me the same question he asked Simon. Not, do you approve, just, do you see this woman? Justifying grace begins with being seen, and it asks us to learn to see. Paul writes to the Ephesians and sets up the human situation honestly. Dead in trespasses, following the course of this world. He doesn't soften it. And then he makes a turn that two words carry. But God, who is rich in mercy, out of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead through our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. But God. Everything before those two words is the human situation. Everything after is what grace does about it. Notice God loved us while we were dead, before we could respond, before we could be grateful. While. The love that meets us in justifying grace is not a reward for showing up. It's the thing that makes showing up possible. And then there's Galatians 2:20. This is the verse at the center of this whole series, the center of my faith. And I want to read it slowly. It is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. There are two moves in that verse. First, it is no longer I who live. The center of gravity shifts. The self that was running things, managing its own spiritual performance, keeping its own score, is no longer the operating center. That is either the most freeing thing Paul ever wrote or the most terrifying depending on where you're standing. And I think most of us have days when it feels like both. But then the second move, the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. There is still a life. The flesh is still here. What has changed is the faith in which it's lived and the love in which it's grounded. Loved me. Not love the world in abstract, not love the church as an institution. Loved me. Justifying grace is not only a doctrinal claim, it has your name on it. Here's what justifying grace does not do. It does not ask us to maintain it. This is where a lot of us get tangled up. We receive the gift and immediately start trying to repay it, as if justification is a balance sheet we now have to manage, as if the grace came with conditions that haven't been fully disclosed yet. Paul is blunt. Righteousness is a gift without charge. The transaction is complete. It was completed before you arrived, which means the life of faith, it's not a repayment plan. We are not working to earn back what we were given. We're not trying to retroactively deserve the grace. It already was. We are already justified. The self that spent years managing its own spiritual performance, depending on the day, is no longer in charge. And depending on the day, that is either a profound relief or slightly terrifying. Both responses are honest. Bring whichever one you have. This week, the study walks you through 5 different shapes of that encounter. Being seen, like the woman in Simon's house. Being made new, not renovated, new. The "but God" that turns a sentence around. The 7 words of the tax collector, which turned out to be enough. And Galatians 2:20, the hinge verse. Take your time with each one. They're not the same shape. The encounter with justifying grace looks different in different lives. And I'll see you at the end of the week.